Alright, it's time to make some good tasting meatballs. I got a pound of beef, and I try to get a little fattier beef if you can, and then a pound of pork. The pork is going to be fattier, usually like 80-20 type of ratio. It gives that extra fat to where it will sizzle it and make it nice and juicy and keep it all together. If it's not fatty meat, it'll fall apart, your meatball. So we got two types of meat, even ratio. This is 2 pounds of meat total. I have some red onion, and this is about one red onion sauteed up in a pan with garlic. It's a whole head of garlic. I love garlic. You can use minced garlic. It's not as good. If you want to make it really good, get the fresh garlic, chop it up. This is just translucent. I didn't cook it down too much. I'm going to toss that in. It's really good to have it cooked already. That way you get a lot of the juices all the way through the meatball, and you don't have to cook the meatball as long in order to get the onions cooked, but you'll get that kind of grilled onion flavor in there. I got half a cup of some panko breadcrumbs, and then a little less than half a cup of milk in here. You need to add some type of milk or cream. I used oat milk because I don't have any cow milk. And if you don't have that, you just put breadcrumbs in. They'll be dry and not very moist of a meatball. So make sure that you soak your breadcrumbs just for like 30 seconds. That's been soaking for a little bit longer. I got a lot of different seasonings here, mostly Italian ones, basil, oregano, pepper. I got some chili powder and some cayenne. This is not going to be your main seasoning, so feel free to kind of pick and choose what you want to put in there. Definitely put some pepper and things like that. I don't really put much salt. You'll have a little salt in your breadcrumbs, so there's no salt in that seasoning. I like to keep that low. Your main flavor is going to come from your onions, your garlic, and this heaping pile of horseradish. This is about 1.5 tablespoons of horseradish that we'll toss on in there. That gives it a nice little bit of heat and flavor and bite to it, and makes them really stand out. This will help keep the meatballs together. It's a whipped up egg, full egg, either one large egg. This is 2 small eggs for 2 pounds of meat, so 2 small eggs should be okay. If it's a little too runny, you can always add a little bit more breadcrumbs if you find that texture down the road. So we got that all up. We can use some spoons to kind of mix it up, but it's going to be hard to do that. That will take a while, so you're going to get messy here. I usually pick one hand and you do it by hand. So just get the seasonings in there a little bit first, and then we'll mix it up. I've let my onions cool a little bit just so they're not super hot to do this. But make sure you get your beef and your pork mixed up. You don't want to whip them too much together to where they lose their texture completely. So you're going to try to kind of fold it all in and squeeze. If you start whipping it all together, it'll have a different texture. So we'll just do this for a little bit. This is quite a few meatballs. Again, it's 2 pounds of meat. Now I'm going to also add an extra little bit of seasoning in terms of some cheese, grated cheese. So I have here just some parmesan. I just do it to taste. Usually because I'm eating it with some parmesan fries. Adding a little parmesan to the meatballs kind of makes them taste a little good, a little bit better, but you can get away without it and it'll still be really good. So we're getting pretty good mixture here. And the texture, notice that it's pretty good texture. It's moist and it's all sticking together. That means we had a good amount of egg and good amount of milk in our breadcrumbs. Alright, still got some, it still looks like I got a little bit of meat texture in there. That's good, and I'm going to call it nicely mixed up here. You'll take a glass pan Ideally a glass pan. I've used other pans. Make sure you oil it a little bit so it's easier to get them off. We're ultimately going to make small little balls, and you're going to flip them partway through cooking them. So I like to do this with a spoon, a couple spoons. I'll move this over closer to my pan so I don't drop raw meat everywhere. But I want small meatballs. I already have one dirty hand, so I can make it. I like small meatballs. You can, there you go. That's one. You can make them bigger, but smaller I prefer because they're just easier to eat. They can be done as nice little appetizers with a cute toothpick. So if you make them small like this, you can go kind of close to each other, especially if you got some oil on the pan. They'll help them cook. You'll cook them around 400 degrees, and after about 10-15 minutes or so, you're going to want to flip them. The bottom of them are going to start to get a little crisp, and if you don't flip them, you cook them all the way through, they'll burn the bottom. Cook them for about 25 minutes. You can't really overcook them because you have all that pork fat in. There's no such thing as a medium rare meatball because you got pork in it. And so you want to make sure you cook it, let it all sizzle. You can always take them out, reheat them the next day, and cook them in 400 degree temperature, and they'll still be moist, still be great. So I'll just fill up this pan and probably have about 18 or so on this pan, and we'll see how they go. So I just pulled them out to flip them around a little bit. You can see that some of them are getting a little brown on the bottom. These are probably on the early side to flip, but I like getting them early and flipping them around, and we'll put them right back in the oven. And I finished rolling while these were in the oven the other sets that I'll cook. Overall, this batch made 59 little mini meatballs. So I'll spread them out, and let's try to get them a good sizzle. You can always put them in the broiler if you're looking to get a good sizzle on them, but I'm just going to put them right back in the oven here. Right, our first batch of meatballs look pretty good. Wiggling them around, I see that they're nice and toasty here. I like them a little bit of crisp on the outside. You can see the more you turn them around, the more universally crisp they'll be, but that's a good meatball. Let them cool. Get some yogurt sauce that I'm preparing right now. I got the other ones cooking. Overall, the 2 pounds of meat made 59 little meatballs. Depends on how big of a meatball you make it. So that cooked for about 30 minutes, but again, it's up to you. You can't really overcook them because they're nice and fatty.